I was sorting through my late wife's old sewing cabinet, just an ordinary winter morning, when my hand brushed something that shouldn't have been there. A letter, thin, yellowed, hidden so deep under the false bottom it was clear she never meant for me to find it. But that wasn't what stopped my breath. It was the name written on the envelope. Not mine, not our children's. It was the name of the man I've hated for 42 years. The man who nearly tore my family apart. The man my wife swore she never spoke to again. And there, in her handwriting, so familiar it felt like she was still standing beside me, were 5 small words that shattered the room around me. If you're reading this, I'm sorry. My fingers shook so bad I could barely tear the flap open. I shouldn't have read it. I know that. Some things are left buried for a reason. But her voice, her memory, they pulled me forward like a thread I couldn't break. I opened it, and the first line almost dropped me to my knees. What I did to save you. Save me. From what? From who? The man whose name stained the front. The man whose shadow haunted our marriage for decades. The man I swore I would never forgive, even on my last day on this earth. My breath grew tight. My heart hammered slow and painful, like it didn't know whether to beat or surrender. I read on. He came to see me that night. The night you thought I was at the hospital. I lied because I knew you'd never forgive me if you knew why. That line burned its way into me. The hospital night. The night everything in our marriage changed forever. For 42 years, I believed she had told me the full truth. For 42 years, I trusted the story she let me hold. But now I held the story she hid. My throat tightened as I read the next sentence, written in a rushed, frightened scrawl. He knew something about our son, something he said you weren't ready to hear. What did he know about my boy? Why her? Why not me? My pulse thumped louder in my ears as I reached the last line. A line so simple, it felt wicked. Please, don't hate him when you learn the truth. I froze, because there was no truth I could imagine that would make me loosen my grip on the hate I'd carried for decades. But she wrote those words with her last breath, and a dying woman does not waste ink on lies. I stared at that letter until the ink blurred into a smear of memory and sorrow. Then something slipped out from inside the envelope, a small folded photograph. Old, edges cracked, colors faded. I opened it, and the moment I understood what I was looking at, the air left my lungs with a sound I'd never heard myself make. My hands went cold. My knees buckled. Because in that photo, standing between my wife and the man I despised more than any soul alive, was my son. And he wasn't a boy, he was a grown man. A grown man I'd never seen before that moment. A grown man who shouldn't exist. A grown man who looked exactly like me. My voice broke as the truth slammed into me like a freight train. My wife hid a child from me. No, not just hid him. She hid the reason why. I tried to breathe. I tried to think. But all I could hear was her voice, soft, loving, trembling through the ink she left behind. Forgive me when you find him. Find him. How? Where? Why now? My mind spun dizzy, drowning in questions that felt sharper than knives. But one thing was carved into my chest like a brand. If she hid a child, if she hid a meeting that night, if she hid a truth so heavy it took her to her grave, then whatever she tried to protect me from was coming for me next. I thought the letter was the secret, but the real secret was the reason she hid it. And before the next sunrise, I learned the truth she feared the most, a truth that nearly destroyed me. I must have stood in that quiet room for a full minute, staring at that photograph as if the faces inside it were about to speak to me. My wife, the man I swore to hate, and a grown son I didn't know existed. But as my eyes traced the edges, the faded colors, the crooked smiles, the way the stranger in the middle had my exact jawline, a cold truth pushed its way up my spine. This wasn't a secret born of panic. It was a secret born of time. Years, maybe decades. Long enough for a child to grow into a man. Long enough for my wife to hide a life I never even suspected. My thumb grazed the corner of the photo and something else caught my eye. A date, written on the back in my wife's handwriting. July 14th, 1989. 36 years ago. 36 years, and not once did she slip. Not once did she let the truth leak into her voice. Not once did she let loneliness, fear, guilt, or even love force her to tell me, "You have another son." My knees bent, slow and shaky, as I lowered myself onto the old wooden stool by her sewing cabinet. The floor creaked under me, that same familiar sigh the house made whenever something heavy settled on it. I felt like I was sinking through time. My eyes fell back to the letter, lying open like a wound on my lap. One line burned hotter than the others. He knew something about our son. Not a son, not my son. Our. The word tasted foreign, wrong, like it belonged to a story I had no part in. A storm of questions spun in my head, loud, sharp, merciless. Why didn't she tell me? Who was the man standing beside her? What did he know about my son, the boy I raised, the boy I buried, the boy I mourned every night for 11 years? What did this stranger know that she refused to tell me even on her deathbed? My fingers squeezed the letter so tightly the paper crackled like dry leaves. I wanted to throw it, burn it, pretend none of it existed. But the truth doesn't vanish just because a man closes his eyes. I learned that lesson too late in life. So I looked again at the photograph, really looked. The man in the middle, the son I never met, was smiling in that picture, but not with joy, with something forced, a tightness around the eyes, a hesitation, as if he didn't want to be standing there between the two people who bound him in secrets. My stomach twisted. There was something in that smile that reminded me of someone else, someone I knew too well. My late wife had that same look on the night she came home from the hospital, the night she told me she was fine but wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't see it then, I see it now. She wasn't hiding the truth for herself. She was hiding it for someone else. Someone she was terrified of losing, maybe me, maybe him, maybe both. A quiet wind pushed through the window, rustling the paper in my hands like the house itself was urging me to keep reading. And so I did. At the very bottom of the letter, almost faint, almost scrubbed out, almost like she hesitated to keep the words at all, were 5 shakier words. "He's been watching you, Frank." My breath froze in my chest. Watching me? For how long? Why? I lifted the photo again, hands trembling, heart climbing into my throat. The stranger who looked like me, the son I never met, had a shadow behind him in the picture. Something barely visible, something off, something unsettling, a figure, blurred, watching from a distance. I squinted closer, my vision tightening to a narrow, fearful focus. And as the shape sharpened in my mind, a chill split through me from neck to spine. Because that shadow, that quiet, blurred figure, stood in the exact same way that a man has stood outside my gate almost every evening for the last 6 months. The man I dismissed as a passerby, the man who never approached, the man who never spoke, the man who always left the moment I stepped outside. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. That wasn't a stranger. That wasn't coincidence. That wasn't imagination. My wife's hidden words echoed through me. "He's been watching you, Frank." And I realized, with a coldness I can't put into words, she didn't hide the letter to protect herself. She hid it because she knew the moment I read it, he would come. I thought I had uncovered the secret, but the secret had already found me, and by the next night he was standing much closer than my gate. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my chair beside the window, the letter on my table, the photo in my hand, my eyes fixed on the gate the way a wounded animal watches the tree line for whatever hurt it last. The world outside was quiet, too quiet. Even the wind felt like it held its breath with me. And then, at 1:14 a.m., the gravel outside shifted. Slow, deliberate, measured. I felt my heart pull tight like an old rope snapping against its own knots. I didn't move, didn't blink. A shape stepped into view, tall, steady, hands in his pockets as if he had all the time in the world. He didn't come to the door, didn't call out my name, didn't move closer than the gate as if there was an invisible line he refused to cross. He just stood there, watching me through the dim porch light. I recognized the posture instantly, that exact tilt of the head, that familiar way the shoulders rested, as if carrying a weight they'd long grown used to. It was the same posture I'd seen in my own mirror for 70 years. My voice cracked in my throat. God help me, that's him. I don't know how long we stared at each other, seconds, maybe minutes, but eventually he lifted his hand. Not to wave, not to greet me, just one gesture, pointing at my door. My heart stumbled inside my chest. He wasn't telling me to let him in. He wasn't asking to talk. He was telling me something else, something silent and cold and heavy enough to sink my lungs. You're not safe in there. And then, just as quietly as he came, he turned and walked into the dark. Not down the road, not toward a car, just into the night, as if the darkness belonged to him. My hand shook on the curtain. My breath trembled. The letter's final words hit harder than ever. He's been watching you, Frank. I didn't know whether to fear him or chase him or pray for him. But I knew one thing for certain. My wife didn't hide the truth to protect herself. She hid it because she knew the moment I discovered him, I would no longer be alone. And not in the comforting way, in the dangerous one. The next morning, I found something on my porch, something that proved he wasn't just watching me. He wanted me to follow him. Dawn came with the kind of cold that bites straight to the bone. I opened the front door, half expecting him to still be standing there. But he wasn't. Instead, something waited on my porch swing, placed neatly, respectfully, as if he didn't want to frighten me any more than the truth already had. A small wooden box, old, weathered, carved with patterns I knew too well, my wife's patterns. Her hands had shaped that box years before our daughter was born, a keepsake she used to hold dried lavender and little notes to herself. But this box, this one she had never shown me. My fingers hovered over it like touching it might burn. When I finally lifted the lid, a faint scent drifted out, lavender and something else. Something like dust and old grief. Inside were three things: a silver locket, a torn bus ticket, and a scrap of paper with a single line in my wife's handwriting: "Forgive him before he forgives himself." My knees weakened. I had to sit down right there on the porch. The locket opened easily. Inside was a tiny photo, a baby, swaddled in a blue blanket. My wife's handwriting beneath it read, "He looks like you." My vision blurred. I wiped my eyes with the back of my trembling hand. The bus ticket was dated the same day my wife told me she was visiting her sister 36 years ago. She wasn't visiting anyone. She was meeting him, meeting the child she never told me about. And the scrap of paper, God help me, that nearly broke me, because my wife never asked for forgiveness. Not in all our years together, not even at the end. But here, in this hidden life she never let me see, she asked for it twice. Once in the letter, and once in this box. My throat tightened. If she was begging me to forgive him, then whatever happened between them wasn't betrayal. It was desperation. A choice she made to protect someone, or maybe to protect me. I picked up the bus ticket again, turning it over, and that's when I noticed something scratched faintly into the paper. A name. Not hers, not mine. His. The son I never met. The son who stood at my gate. The son who left this box for me to find. Everything inside me went cold. He wasn't hiding from me. He was waiting for me to follow. By noon that day, I learned where he wanted me to go, and God forgive me, I went. I don't know what possessed me to leave the house. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was that old, stubborn part of me that refuses to die quietly. But by midday, I found myself driving toward the edge of town, toward the old freight station that shut down 20 years ago. The bus ticket's faded ink had the station's name on it. He wanted me here. When I pulled in, the place looked dead, rusty tracks, broken windows, weeds taller than the benches. But then I saw it. A single figure sitting on the far end of the platform. Not moving, not waving, not calling out, just waiting, the same posture, the same stillness. My stomach twisted. I stepped out of the truck, my breath fogging in the cold air. He didn't turn around, didn't even shift. But I knew in that deep, instinctive way only age can teach. He was waiting for me. Each step toward him felt heavier. Like I wasn't walking toward a man, but toward a truth 40 years overdue. When I reached 10 feet from him, he finally spoke. Not turning, not facing me, just letting the words cut the air like a blade I wasn't ready for. "You look older than I imagined." My heart stopped. His voice, God, his voice sounded like mine. Older, scratchier, but the same shape. The same breaks between words. I swallowed hard, my lips barely worked. "You know who I am," he nodded once slowly as if the gesture hurt. "I've always known." A pain I can't describe tore up through my chest. "Why now?" I whispered. "Why come to me now?" He finally turned his head, just enough for me to see his profile. The jawline, the cheekbones, my face, worn by a life I never gave him. His eyes met mine and there was no anger in them. Just a quiet, exhausted sadness. "Because she told me to," my breath faltered. "My wife." He nodded again. "She wrote me a letter too." The world tilted. What did it say?" He lifted a small folded paper from his coat pocket, held it carefully like it was a living thing. "She said you'd come, and she said you wouldn't forgive her until you heard the truth from me." My pulse hammered in my ears. "The truth about what?" My voice cracked. His jaw clenched, the same way mine does when I'm about to break. He looked away toward the distant, silent tracks, and his words came out barely above a whisper. "The truth about why she hid me." And when he finally told me the reason, it wasn't betrayal that shattered me, it was the sacrifice. For a long moment, he didn't speak, just stared at the empty tracks like he was watching a train that would never come. Then he exhaled, a slow, shaky breath that sounded like a man unloading a lifetime of weight. "She didn't hide me because she was ashamed," he murmured. His voice was quiet, almost gentle, but it carved through me like a knife. "She hid me because she was trying to keep you alive." My heart stopped. "Alive? Keep me alive? What are you talking about?" My words rasped out of me, thin and brittle. He swallowed hard, his jaw tightening the way mine does before I admit something painful. "The man you thought she betrayed you with, he wasn't who she loved." I felt my breath hitch. He continued, each word heavier than the last. "He was the one who threatened her." My fingers went numb. No, that couldn't be the man from the photo, the name on the envelope. He was the one I spent years hating, cursing, resenting. The one I believed stole something from my marriage. And now this stranger, this son, was telling me I had hated the wrong man. He lowered his head. "He hurt her, Frank, before you ever met her, before your first date, before you even knew her name." My stomach twisted, a sickening cold blooming inside me. He kept going, his voice shaking now. "She never told you because she knew what you would do." I clenched my fists without meaning to. He wasn't wrong. She always said I had a temper that burned hotter than most men's. A temper that could have landed me behind bars if pointed at the wrong person. "I would have killed him," I whispered. He nodded, eyes glistening. "That's exactly why she hid it." A sound escaped me, not quite a word. Not quite a sob, a broken thing that didn't belong to any language I knew. He turned fully toward me then, and for the first time I saw all of him. Older, weathered, lonely, carrying decades of someone else's pain. "She didn't hide me because she didn't love you." He paused, voice cracking. "She hid me because she was terrified of losing you." I closed my eyes. It felt like the ground beneath me shifted into a truth I wasn't prepared for. A truth that didn't just rewrite my marriage, it rewrote my entire life. But what he told me next, that was the part that destroyed me. Because she never kept the secret alone, my own son did too. I stared at him. I didn't want to understand, didn't want to hear it. But he didn't look away. He stood there, eyes steady, like he'd been preparing for this moment his entire life. "Your son knew about me." The world narrowed, my vision tunneled, my lungs refused air. "No," I whispered. "He would have told me, he told me everything." He shook his head. "Not this." A cold wind pushed through the abandoned station, carrying dust and silence that settled in my bones. "My boy," my voice cracked. "My son loved me. He wouldn't hide something like this." He stepped closer, slowly, cautiously, as if approaching a wounded animal. "He didn't hide it to protect her." His voice softened. "He hid it to protect you." I felt my legs weaken. I had to grab the railing to steady myself. He continued, quiet but unwavering. "He found out the truth when he was 16, found old letters she'd kept. He confronted her, begged her to tell you." My chest tightened until it felt like a fist was squeezing my ribs. "God forgive me, My boy had always been distant after 16, quieter, colder. I thought it was typical teenage anger, thought he blamed me for being strict or stubborn. But now I understood. He wasn't angry. He was carrying something that wasn't his burden to bear. My voice trembling. What did he do? He took a long breath. He went to find me. Those words nearly stopped my heart. He found you, I whispered. He nodded. He found me, found the man who hurt her, and he warned me. My throat burned, my eyes stung. Warned you about what? He looked down at his hands scarred and tired. He said if I ever came near your wife again, you'd kill me, without thinking, without regret. I felt something inside me break open. My son had been protecting me from a truth that could have ended my life. A truth that could have destroyed our family long before fate took him from me. I whispered, why didn't he tell me before he died? His voice softened with grief. Because he didn't want you spending the rest of your life hating her for hiding me or hating yourself for not knowing. I pressed a hand to my chest, not for drama, not for effect, but because the pain was real, physical, crushing. I looked at him, this man who carried half my face and all of my wife's sorrow, and for the first time I didn't see a secret. I didn't see a stranger. I saw what I lost, what she lost, what my son had tried so desperately to protect. Family, broken, hidden, but still family. I opened my mouth to speak, to ask the question that had been tearing at me, but he was faster. He whispered. She didn't just hide who I was, she hid why she needed me. And when he finally told me the reason, I learned the one truth my wife took to her grave, a truth she hid from all of us. He didn't rush, didn't force the words. He let them come slow, like a man peeling back the last layer of a wound still bleeding underneath. Your wife didn't hide me because she feared you. She hid me because she feared what would happen when he came back. The name, the man, the one I spent decades hating, the one I thought she chose over me. I felt a coldness crawl up my spine. He came back, the words stumbled out of me. He nodded. 5 years before she passed. My blood turned to ice. She met him, my voice cracked. No, he said gently. She avoided him, she stayed away, but he came back into her life through someone else. His eyes met mine with a painful, quiet understanding. Through me, my hand tightened on the railing, he continued. When I was in my 20s, I tried to find answers. I wanted to know why she gave me up, why she never fought for me. He swallowed hard. And when I tried digging into her past, he found me first. The wind stilled. Even the empty station seemed to hold its breath. His voice dropped to a whisper. He threatened her again, threatened her life. Threatened yours. I felt the railing bite into my palm. But she, I whispered, she never said a word. He nodded painfully. Because she believed that if you found out what he did to her, you wouldn't live long enough to regret what you'd do to him. I closed my eyes. She knew me too well, far too well, but he wasn't finished. Frank, his voice cracked, raw and unguarded, she asked me to stay away, to let her protect you, to let her carry that burden alone so neither of you destroyed yourselves. My breath hitched. My wife, the woman I loved more than life, had spent her final years protecting me from a threat I never saw coming. And protecting him, the son she couldn't keep from a past that wouldn't leave him alone. I opened my eyes. What did she tell you? In her letter, he looked at me, and for the first time I saw tears, real tears. He unfolded the letter slowly, hands shaking, and read the line that shattered whatever was left of me. Take care of him when I no longer can. I pressed a trembling hand to my mouth. She wasn't asking him to forgive me. She was asking him to protect me, to finish the job she started, to be the son I didn't know I had until it was almost too late. But protecting me wasn't why he came. It was what he came to warn me about that nearly stopped my heart. I stood there, a grown man with trembling hands and a heart that felt older than my bones, trying to understand a truth my wife carried alone until the day she left this world. But he wasn't finished. He hadn't come all this way just to give me answers, or forgiveness, or the pieces of a past I never knew belonged to me. No, he came because something else was moving in the dark between us, something my wife feared more than secrets, more than shame, more even than losing me. I could see it in the way he looked at the empty tracks. Not at me, not at the sky, at the tracks, at the place people leave when they're running. His jaw tightened, then loosened, then tightened again like he was wrestling with the next words. Finally, he said it. "He's not dead." My breath stopped. Everything inside me stopped. Those 3 words echoed through the hollow station like a bullet ricocheting off metal. Not dead, not dead, not dead. The man who hurt her. The man I hated. The man who destroyed the first half of her life before she ever gave the second half to me. He was still out there, alive. My knees nearly buckled. I stared at him, at this son who carried my face but not my years, and whispered, "How do you know?" He didn't answer right away. He just inhaled slowly, as if pulling in enough air to steady the ache in his chest. Because I saw him, my pulse slammed against my ribs. "When?" My voice barely made it out. He swallowed hard. 2 weeks before she passed. The world spun. "She knew," I whispered. "She knew he was alive," he nodded, and the pain in his eyes was a mirror of mine. "Yes, and she knew he was looking for you." I felt the cold seep deeper into me, into the parts of me that hadn't gone cold in decades. "Looking for me?" I said slowly. "But why? Why after all these years?" He hesitated. A hesitation that told me the truth was worse than I feared. Finally, he said it. "Because the one thing he wanted from her, the one thing he never got, he thinks you took." I blinked. Took what?" His voice lowered to a whisper. "Her." My heart stopped. All these years, my hatred, my anger, my bitterness, I thought he hurt her because she loved him more than she loved me. But that wasn't the truth. No, the truth was darker. He hurt her because she escaped him. She slipped through the grip of a man who controlled her life long before I met her. And she found me. She chose me. I wasn't the man who stole his love. I was the man who gave her a life where he couldn't reach her. And that was unforgivable to a man like him. "He wants revenge," I whispered. My son nodded. "And she knew he'd come after you the moment she was gone." The air in my lungs turned thin. My wife didn't hide the truth because she doubted my love. She hid it because she feared that if I ever learned what that man did to her, and what he tried to do again, my anger would kill me long before age ever could. I tightened my grip on the railing to keep my legs from giving out. He watched me carefully as if bracing for my collapse. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. "He's not looking for her anymore, Frank." My voice trembled. What is he looking for?" A long pause. "Then you." And that's when he told me the part my wife begged him never to say, the real reason that man was coming for me, and why he wouldn't stop this time. For a long moment, the wind was the only thing speaking between us. A thin, cold whistle slipping through broken windows and rusted rails, carrying the ghost of everything I thought I understood. But nothing, not grief, not age, not 40 years of marriage, prepared me for what he said next. He stepped closer, close enough for me to see the fear in his eyes, and the guilt, and the weight of a truth he'd carried far too long. "He's coming for you," he repeated quietly, "but not for revenge." I swallowed hard. My throat felt like sandpaper. "Then, why?" the words scraped out of me. He hesitated, that same hesitation I knew too well. The kind a man has when he is about to destroy someone with honesty. Finally, he spoke. "Because you're the only one left who knows his real name." My heart slammed against my ribs. His name. His real name. Not the one my wife whispered once in a moment of fear. Not the alias she scribbled on the front of that letter I found under the floorboard. No, another name. One I hadn't said aloud in nearly 50 years. A name I buried deep enough I thought the earth had swallowed it. My eyes widened. I felt the blood drain from my face. No, she never told you that." My voice shook. "She couldn't have, no one knew, not even my son knew." He lowered his gaze. "She didn't have to tell me, Frank." He paused. His voice softened. "He did." The station seemed to tilt. I grabbed the railing again. He spoke to you," a slow nod, "once." "When?" My voice cracked. He swallowed. 5 days before she died." My breath hitched, sharp, painful. "He came to your house," he whispered. "Not inside, not close, but close enough." My knees trembled. "And he told you his name," I said, barely breathing. Another nod. "He told me so I'd deliver a message." My pulse hammered. My breaths grew shallow. A message, I whispered. His voice dropped to a whisper meant for the dying. He said the name you knew him by is the one he buried. I shook my head, slow, rigid, as the truth crawled into my bones. No, this couldn't be happening, not after all these years, he exhaled shakily. He said you were there the night he disappeared. My stomach twisted violently. Stop, I rasped. He said you saw what happened. No, don't say it. And he said, his voice faltered, he's coming to silence the last witness. The world around me stopped moving. My vision blurred. My breath froze in my chest. A memory I spent decades burying pushed itself to the surface. A night of shouting, of fists, of someone falling, a body hitting the ground, and my wife's scream splitting the air. I had convinced myself that memory wasn't real. That trauma had twisted it, that grief had exaggerated it, that no one saw what I saw, but he knew, he always knew. I lifted shaking hands to my face. I didn't kill him, I whispered. I swear to God I didn't kill him. He nodded gently. I know. I looked up at him, tears burning my eyes. How? The word trembled. And he whispered, soft, steady, like a blade sliding in gently. Because he's alive, Frank. And he remembers the one man who tried to stop him. My breath shattered. All these years, my hatred, my misunderstanding, my grief, my anger, all pointed at the wrong man. The real danger was the one still breathing. And he was walking toward me with a memory sharper than any knife. I pressed my hand over my mouth as the truth settled into me like cold earth being shoveled onto a grave. My wife didn't hide the past to protect herself. She hid it because she knew the moment I remembered that night, the moment I spoke his name, would be the moment he came for me. And now, because of her death, because the secret was no longer buried, that moment had arrived. But what he told me next was the part that nearly made my heart stop, because the man I feared most was already closer than I ever imagined. He looked at me with eyes that carried the weight of a man who had been preparing himself to deliver the worst kind of truth, the kind that doesn't just change a life, it ends the one you thought you lived. He stepped closer, lowering his voice until the words barely reached me. Frank, he isn't coming someday, he's here. My breath froze. I didn't understand, couldn't, wouldn't. What do you mean he's here? The words scraped out of my throat. He inhaled sharply, the cold air trembling around his breath. He's already in town. I shook my head, a slow, disbelieving tremor. No, that can't be. I would have seen him. Someone would have. He cut me off gently. He's been watching you, Frank, not from the gate, not from the road, closer. My pulse staggered. My knees weakened. Where? The word cracked like a snapped branch. He looked at me, really looked, as if searching my face for strength I wasn't sure I had left. Your house. My insides went cold enough to stop the world. He continued softly, as if afraid the truth itself might break me. Last night wasn't the first time you saw someone at the gate. It was just the first time you noticed it wasn't me. My heart hammered painfully against my ribs. What are you saying? I whispered. His jaw clenched, that same tightness I had always seen in the mirror, a family trait I never knew had another owner. And he said, the man you saw at your gate 2 nights ago, the one you thought was me, Frank, that wasn't me. The world around me blurred, the porch, the swing, the shadows behind the fence, the figure in the dark that I had convinced myself was the son I just met. It wasn't him. It wasn't him. It wasn't him. I felt a wave of sickness roll through me, cold and nauseating. I waved to him, I whispered. I stepped toward him. I thought he was you. He nodded, pained. He knew that. The breath punched out of me. God, I whispered, hand pressed to my chest. He knew. He closed his eyes, voice tightening with something close to guilt. He's been testing how close he can get. A beat. How close you'll let him. A memory snapped into place, the creak on my back porch last week, the tools that shifted in the shed, the faint shape I'd seen near the barn and brushed off as my imagination. Not imagination, not coincidence, footsteps, watching, waiting, silencing the last witness. My throat tightened until I could barely swallow. Why now? I whispered. After all these years, why come back now? He didn't hesitate. Because your wife is gone, my breath trembled. She was the only one he feared. He paused. Not because she was strong, but because she knew everything. Everything. My wife carried the entire weight of that man so I could live a life free from the demons in her past. She carried them alone until her last breath. And now, with her gone, that last barrier between him and me was gone too. He wants to finish what he started, my son whispered. And today is the first day he thinks he can. The wind picked up. The station's old roof groaned. Something metallic rattled in the distance, but none of it mattered. All I could hear was the echo of a nightmare I thought I buried, a man falling, a scream, a shadow disappearing into the dark, a name I swore I'd never say again. He stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder, a gesture that felt both foreign and strangely familiar. "Frank," his voice cracked. "He's closer than you think." My breath caught in my throat. He looked over my shoulder, not at me, not at the ground, at something behind me. He whispered, soft, trembling, and terrified, "Don't turn around." But I did, and God help me, I wish I hadn't. He told me not to turn, told me to stay still, told me to breathe quietly. But fear does strange things to a man my age. It creeps through the bones, tightens the lungs, and makes patience impossible. So I turned, slowly, carefully, like a man opening a door he already knows leads to fire. And standing behind me, only a few steps away, was the silhouette I had seen at my gate on my porch in the dark corners of my memory. He was taller than I remembered, thinner, his shoulders hunched, as if someone had bent him slowly over time. His face was hidden beneath the brim of a worn hat, shadow covering everything except the faint curl of a smirk I had seen once before, the night he disappeared. My breath caught, my heart staggered. My son moved in front of me, blocking me with an instinct I didn't know he had. "Don't come any closer," my son warned. But the man didn't obey. He took one step, then another. A slow, mocking tap of his heel echoed through the empty station like a countdown. Tap, tap, tap. He lifted his head, and for the first time I saw his eyes. Those eyes cold, sharp, unchanged. As if time itself refused to touch the evil in them. He whispered my name, not loudly, not angrily, but with the calm confidence of a man who believed he had finally cornered the last witness. "Frank," a single word. A knife slipped between ribs. My son stepped forward. "Leave him alone." The man chuckled, a dry, brittle sound like dead leaves under a boot. "Your mother tried to keep him safe," he said. "But secrets don't stay buried forever." My chest tightened. My pulse was hammered. He knew. He knew about that night. He knew what I saw. He knew why my wife spent decades looking over her shoulder. I felt myself trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of everything I never spoke aloud. "I didn't kill you," I whispered. "I tried to stop you. I tried." He cut me off with a smirk. "You tried," he repeated mockingly, "and you failed." I swallowed hard, my throat is burning. Then something changed. His posture shifted, his smirk faded. His eyes darted to my son, not in anger, in confusion. "You're not supposed to be here," he muttered. "You were supposed to stay gone." My son whispered, voice tight, "Not anymore." A cold breeze swept between us, a strange silence filling the station, as if time paused to watch what would happen next. Then the man stepped back, not out of fear, not out of guilt, out of realization. He looked at me, then at my son, and something in his face cracked. "You told him," he hissed at my son. "You weren't supposed to tell him." My son didn't flinch. "I told him because he deserved the truth." The man's jaw clenched, his hands curled into fists, and then he turned and walked away, not running, not rushing, walking, slow, deliberate, like a storm pulling back only to strike another day. My son grabbed my arm, steadying me. "Are you okay?" he whispered, but I didn't answer. I watched the man disappear beyond the tracks into the shadows, the same way he vanished on the night that haunted my wife for her entire life. A silence settled around us, a silence heavier than truth and sharper than memory. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then my son said quietly, "He's not done, Frank." A pause. "But neither are we." And for the first time in decades, I didn't feel alone. I looked at him, this man I didn't raise, but who carried my blood and my wife's courage. and I placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. Your mother, my voice cracked, was trying to save us both. He nodded, eyes fogging with grief. I know. We stood there in the empty station as the wind grew quiet and the sky dimmed to dusk. Two men bound by secrets, loss, and a woman who gave everything to protect us. I took a long breath, the kind that clears the dust from the corners of old memories. Come on, son, I murmured softly. We go home together. He nodded. And as we walked toward the exit, the rails humming quietly beneath us, I whispered the final truth my wife left behind. Some secrets bury themselves, but love always finds a way back. And for the first time since she died, I felt her there with me. Not in sorrow, not in fear, in peace. And if you're listening to me right now, remember this. Sometimes the people we lose are still protecting us in ways we'll never fully understand. Hold your loved ones close before life decides to teach you what regret truly feels like.